Leaving your dog alone can be hard, whether it's for work, errands, or a night out. Meanwhile, your furry friend may feel anxious and unsure about when you'll be back. Many dog owners try to comfort their pets but unknowingly make things worse. In this video, we'll cover 12 common mistakes people make when leaving their dogs alone, and share tips on how to do it the right way. By the end, you'll know exactly how to ease your dog's anxiety and make leaving much smoother. If you're passionate about keeping your pup happy and healthy, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join our community of dog lovers. Mornings can be tough, especially if you're not a morning person. It's easy to leave everything until the last second, set up the night before, sleep in as long as possible, then rush out the door with coffee in hand, barely saying goodbye to your dog. But is that really what's best for them? If you want to help your dog feel less stressed about being left alone, consider giving up a few extra minutes of sleep. Yes, it's a small sacrifice, but it's worth it for your furry friend. Getting up earlier gives you time to take your dog on a nice, long walk before you leave for the day. The bonus? A tired dog is a happy dog. With that extra exercise, your pup is more likely to spend the day napping rather than feeling anxious and lonely. And if they're asleep, they won't have time to miss you quite as much. Isn't that a win-win? Leaving your dog alone, especially for the first few times, can be tough. You might set up their food and toys, double-check the water bowl, give them lots of pets, and just as you're out the door, rush back in for one more goodbye. After all, how can you resist that adorable face watching you leave? It's tempting to reassure them, so they don't feel unloved, but here's the problem: making a big deal out of leaving can actually make things harder for your pup. Dogs often look to us for cues on how to react. If you act like leaving is a major event, your dog is likely to think, this is serious. Time to panic. Instead, try to keep your goodbyes low-key and calm. A quick, casual farewell shows your dog that there's nothing to worry about. They'll take their cue from you and feel more relaxed when you're gone. It may feel a little cold at first, but in the long run, it helps your pup feel more secure. Perspective number 10. Equally as tempting as it might feel, don't make too big of a deal of your homecoming. This is likely to be pretty hard because your pup is probably going to make a big deal even if you've been leaving them alone and then coming back every day for years. A lot of dogs will insist on reacting like they haven't seen you for over a decade. You don't have to rebuff their affections, although you might want to try and get them to tone it down a bit when it comes to jumping up and down and trying to wash your face, unless you like having a face covered in dog saliva and dirty paw prints all over your work clothes. But you should avoid rewarding it too much when you come in. The aim should be to get your dog to calm down, settle in a bit, and then give them all the pets that you want to give them. Otherwise you risk rewarding them for their excited reaction, which prompts them to continue working themselves up whenever you leave. Number 9. Separation anxiety can cause your dog to do more than just feel a bit nervous. Some dogs, in an attempt to soothe themselves, may start to act out when left alone. Soiling in the house, for example, is a common reaction for dogs who have separation anxiety. Peeing and pooping in the house helps spread their scent around, satisfying their instinct to mark their territory and making them feel better about being alone. If your dog is being left alone for more than a few hours, of course, then they're going to need toilet breaks regardless of how comfortable they are. If you need to leave your dog for a long time and notice that they're either soiling in the house or seeming extra desperate for their toilet break when they get home, then you might need to consider booking a dog walker or getting a friend to pop in halfway through the day to let them go out. Other dogs might try working off their anxious energy by chewing on things. If you're lucky, it'll be their chew toys. If you're unlucky, it'll be your furnishings. However your dog expresses their separation anxiety, the important thing is not to scold them for it. It's important to remember that your dog won't understand why they're in trouble unless they see you in the act, so telling them off when you get home for something they did during the day isn't going to have much of an effect except to make your dog feel confused and upset. If this happens when you come home at the end of the day, then eventually your dog is going to start associating you coming home with those anxious and upset feelings. This will not only affect your bond with them, but will also make them feel more stressed in general on the days that you have to leave them alone. Number 8. Nobody likes to come home to a cluttered house, and you might want to try and avoid tripping over things when you come home tired at the end of the day by taking the time to tidy up your house the night before. But spare some thought for the one who's going to be stuck in that house while you're away. In order for your dog to entertain themselves for the day, they need to have some things to entertain themselves with. Tidying up the toys makes things easier for you, but means that your pup has fewer things to keep them engaged and distracted while you're away. Try spreading them out instead so as to give your pup the maximum amount of mental stimulation. Aside from spreading out their toys, try adding some variety with interactive puzzle toys. Treat dispensing toys can work wonders, keeping your dog engaged as they work to get to the goodies inside. Rotate toys each day to keep things fresh and exciting, or hide a few treats in different places around the house for your pup to sniff out. If your dog enjoys chewing, safe chew toys or bones can also help relieve boredom and provide comfort while they're alone. Number 7. Where does your dog go when you leave them alone in the house? Maybe they have a crate that they can nap in if you're only leaving them for a shorter amount of time, but even if you haven't chosen to crate train your pup, you should try to provide them with some space to call their own. Setting up a den, whether that's a crate, a corner of the room, or even a cardboard box with a blanket inside, is a nice way to ensure that your dog has Somewhere safe to retreat to when they're feeling anxious or overwhelmed. If your pup is left without a place to hide, they might be more likely to engage in some of that damaging stress-releasing behavior. Remember, just because your dog has a place in the house doesn't mean that you have to confine them to that spot. If you prefer to let them freely roam around the house, then you can still allow them to do that. A den just means that once they're tired of roaming, they have a nice place to come back to for a nap. Number 6. One of the things that it's easy to forget when you're leaving for work in the morning is the curtains. Like most people, you probably have your curtains closed when you're asleep to keep your room dark when you wake up, especially on those winter mornings when it might still be dark outside. It can be easy to forget to swing them open again, but if you're leaving your pup in the house alone, it's a good idea to remember to open those curtains up. An open window can be a great chance for your dog to get some mental stimulation. If you live next to a street, your dog can watch people passing by. If you live in a more rural area, however, then your pooch will enjoy sitting in the windowsill and keeping an eye out for passing birds and rabbits, especially if they're a breed that would traditionally have been used for hunting. The open curtains also allow your dog to have a bit more light in the house. Our fur babies are generally better at seeing in dim light than we are, but that doesn't mean that they don't want some natural lighting now and then, especially on summer days when there's nothing more relaxing for a sleeping dog than taking a lovely nap in a warm patch of sunlight. Number 5. If you're still worried about your pup getting bored while they're home alone, then you might consider leaving the TV or radio on for them while you're out so that they can have the benefit of human voices to listen to while you're away. Well, this isn't actually a bad idea, but it's something that needs to be handled carefully. Switching the radio or TV onto a random channel and then leaving might sound like a good idea, but it can backfire if that nice chat show or classical music program later turns into something louder and more scary, perhaps with a thunderstorm or gunshot sound effects. These could scare your dog, and since you wouldn't be there, you'd have no way to comfort them and most likely no way of figuring out what scared them in the first place. If you're planning to leave your pup alone with a radio or TV, it can be a good idea to queue up some kind of playlist or put on a nice DVD before you go, so that you know exactly what your dog will be watching or listening to. Equally, it can be a good idea to try and figure out what sounds bother your dog and try to make it so that they don't have to deal with them while you're out. If there's some appliance, for example, that they seem to hate the sound of, maybe consider switching it off until you come back again. Number 4. One of the worst things you can do when leaving your dog alone is not take the appropriate preparations. Your fur baby won't enjoy it if you go straight from spending all your time together to leaving them alone for hours at a time without any midpoint. If you want to start leaving your puppy alone on a regular basis, you need to start small. Give your dog some signal, like saying "I'll be back," Terminator voice optional, and then turn to leave the room. Once you've put a closed door between the two of you for about 5 minutes, come back in and reward the dog with a treat. Keep doing this, extending the amount of time you leave each time, and then start leaving the house entirely. It's a good idea to build up to leaving them for the length of a full work day over the course of several days or maybe even a week or so. Doing things gradually, your dog is able to get used to the idea that no matter how long you leave them for, you will always come back again. Eventually, using a verbal signal can help them make this association in their minds that bit faster. Number 3. What time do you come home? Do you have a regular time? Dogs are surprisingly good at keeping track of time, despite the fact that you'll almost never see one wearing a watch. If you come home at the same time every day, then your dog will derive a significant sense of safety and security from that regular routine. They will know that they don't need to worry about whether you're coming home or not until that special time of day. If that time comes and goes without you returning, however, then they may become anxious. If you don't have a specific time of day at which you'll always return, then your pup will never know whether you're coming or not. They'll be constantly waiting for you to come through the door and assuming that every pair of feet that they hear walking along the sidewalk outside is you coming home to see them. Obviously, life gets in the way sometimes, and it can be difficult to manage to come home at the same time every day, but attempting to get home at roughly the same time as often as possible makes the experience of being left home alone a lot easier for your dog to handle. Number 2. Nobody wants to think of their fur baby going hungry while they're home alone, but leaving them alone with a big bowl of food, although it might seem like the obvious solution, can lead to overeating. Your dog has evolved for what known as a feast or famine lifestyle. Their wolf ancestors wouldn't have been able to guarantee getting a meal every day, but whenever they made a large kill, they would have suddenly experienced a massive influx of food. Wolves don't have access to fridge freezers, so the only thing they would have been able to do is eat as much as they can when they could before it all started going bad. Our pampered domestic pooches can nowadays expect a proper meal every day, however old and instincts die hard, and if you leave your dog with a large amount of food meant to last them the whole day, they're not going to do the sensible thing and ration it out into 3 meals over the course of the day. Instead, they'll be more likely to stuff it all down as quickly as possible, even if it makes them feel sick afterwards. Not only is being left with a large amount of food not great for your pup's health, but it's also not a good way to keep them entertained. It's far better to give them smaller amounts of food than that are harder for them to access, so that their interest can be held for longer. Why not try hiding treats for them around the house or putting some food inside a puzzle feeder so that they have to work hard to get it out? Again, number 1, when you start training your dog to get them used to being left alone, you might get some people telling you to ignore them when they start freaking out about being left alone in the house. Let them cry it out. These people say they'll get over it in time. You might even be told that if you rush back in to comfort your dog when you hear them barking and whining for you, you're rewarding their anxiety and making it worse. In fact, however, leaving them alone while they're crying for you is likely to only make them more and more panicked. They won't understand why you're not coming back to them and might decide that they have to get louder in order for you to hear them. Instead, head back inside and let them know that you're there. Don't go overboard with comforting them, but show them some affection and let them know that you've come back and everything's alright. Then once they've calmed down a bit, try again, maybe providing them with a toy or a treat to keep their mouth occupied, so they're less likely to try crying for you again. The aim isn't to force them to suppress their anxiety, it's to teach them that they don't need to be anxious in the first place. Even after you make the effort to ensure that you're leaving your fur baby in the best possible position before you go to work for the day, it can still be hard to tell whether they're actually happy or not. Creating a positive association with your departures can work wonders. Give them a favorite toy, a puzzle feeder, or a treat-filled Kong just before you leave so they're preoccupied, and view alone time as a rewarding experience. Make sure your dog gets plenty of exercise beforehand. A tired dog is more likely to feel relaxed and sleep while you're gone. Additionally, setting up a calm, comforting space like a cozy bed or crate can provide them with a safe retreat, making the time alone a bit easier. With consistent practice and these small adjustments, you'll help your dog feel more secure and at ease when you're not home. We spend so much time expressing our love. Who wouldn't just look at that beautiful mutt? But our affection does not translate naturally into doggy language. Forget hugs and kisses. Well, at least for the next 8 minutes, we will give you other 9 little things that speak even more directly to your dog's heart.